Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. And Marion, do you want to do roll call real quick?
Sure. Commissioner Alter,
Here.
Commissioner Bain, Commissioner Leverage, absent. Nauman
Here.
and Riggleman
Here.
and Don Beals, I think, should be coming. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so now we'll move into section 3, which is public participation. And here we go. Public participation enables the public to address the commission about an item that is not on the agenda. If you wish to address the commission, please state your name and address for the record. The Arizona open meeting law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on an item which is not listed on the prepared agenda. The commission members may, however, respond to criticism made by those addressing the commission, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. Public comments should be limited to 3 minutes reading time. So do we have any public participation? We do. Okay. We have one. We have a contestant.
Press this. Test. Okay. Afternoon, Commissioners. Tamara Lawless, Water Conservation Manager. I just wanted to pop in and show you guys this award. So our program a few weeks ago received this award from the EPA Water Sense program. There's an annual conference in Las Vegas called Water Smart Innovations where they present like this year's award. And this is we're the first utility from Arizona to receive a Partner of the Year award, which is like a higher level than we've received in the past. So it was really exciting to receive this. We got to give a little speech at the conference in Las Vegas. Just like a huge honor to be recognized by the EPA. The Water Sense program is a really important partner for us because they do testing of fixtures to make sure that they're efficient and effective. So if we're going to recommend a fixture to somebody, you can say, hey, this has, the Water Sense seal of approval. That means that they make sure that it actually does rinse out the shampoo or that it flushes without needing to be double flushed. So just a nice thing for us to be able to say that, we're achieving at the level that national organizations like the EPA are recognizing our work, and just, appreciation for the commission and council and the community for continuing to say that water conservation is important and supporting our work. So thanks, here it is.
That's amazing and congratulations. Quick question. So is the metric for that based on usage or number of items, units installed, or what's the
Yeah,
key
I
measurement?
don't, hopefully I'm allowed to say, but essentially we submit a packet of information to the EPA every year explaining our achievements for the year, including how many fixtures we participated in the community with getting retrofitted. So like toilets, shower heads, aerators. So that's like the level at which we're being recognized is just like our changing out of so many fixtures in the community and achieving efficiency and water savings in that way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Tamara, is the trophy get circulated among Water Commission members? We get a week each?
Yeah, let us know if you want to adopt it, and show it off to your friends. I'm sure we can arrange something.
Thank you.
Just don't eat off of it, all right? Okay. Any other public participation online? Going once, twice. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic news. Item 4, so approval of minutes. Do we have any amendments or revisions to the minutes from last month? And again, Marianne, thank you for putting the minutes together. They're always so great.
Looks like Don is looking.
Anybody have any amendments? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
Yeah.
For, just go ahead, Rob.
About to.
I move to accept the minutes as written.
Can I get a second?
Actually, is it still open for a comment?
Sure.
Comments? Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I'm working from the printed copy, Marion. Just a couple of items here. Page 9, the second sentence. I think that ended up being a little bit of a fragment. I did not understand the meaning of that sentence. The idea of having urban growth boundaries within the corporate boundaries of the city. I think the thought is a little incomplete there. I'm not sure quite how that finishes.
I am not sure. When I take the meeting minutes, it also translates everything. So sometimes when I look at the translations, I go off of that. Maybe the person that was, um, I don't know, I can look back at it.
Yeah, I just didn't get couldn't quite understand the sense um, of that sentence. Similarly, under David, about halfway down that same page, page 9, David Hayward's remarks, the sentence beginning also, it says also on growth discussion to be undertaken by folks responsible for those issues within City Hall. I just didn't quite see how that fit with the rest of it. If you could just look at that again and see if that can be clarified.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I remember one of the issues was that the urban growth was actually within the city limit, and that was like nonsensical. So that was why I'd have to do with that, but, yeah, but I had a bad connection, so I remember that. Okay, given those, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Actually, the one other than, and this may be, I just didn't quite understand the structure here, but on pages 7 and 8, in the middle of page 7, we have current regional plan 2030 policy WR.4.3, and then followed in the next section by proposed regional plan 2045. And then on the next page, we have those same things over again, which seem to be a repeat of the same information. And I'm not sure if I missed something there or if this is redundant or quite what, but
Yeah, I think I just inserted something right before, so I can make that correction.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. As I said, I wasn't sure if that was just my misreading or what. Thanks again.
Okay, with those 3 amendments, Don, you still good approving or making the motion? Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Malcolm? All those opposed? Okay, carries. That's right. Okay, so let's go to item 5A, new business, debriefing from 2024 EPA Carbon Pollution Reduction Grant from Shannon Jones.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Shannon Jones, Water Services Division Director. A couple of months ago, was directed by the commission, we're looking for information regarding the debriefing from a EPA carbon pollution reduction grant application. And so it's my pleasure tonight to walk through that presentation, present the facts of the debriefing, and hopefully facilitate any further discussion that needs to occur. A little background. So in April of 24, the city of Flagstaff submitted for consideration a grant application titled the Northern Arizona Biomass Innovation Hub. But it really took a look at 3 regional liabilities for biomass challenges, including forest restoration, byproducts, biosolids from wastewater treatment, and residential food scraps and yard waste. The strategies to reduce the carbon emissions included advanced pyrolysis of forest biomass, advanced pyrolysis of the biosolids, composting of food and yard waste, firewood bank and stove replacements, and spurring innovation through biomass burial, workforce, and market development research. Those were the strategies implemented to the grant. The grant application request was a little over $57 million to reduce the carbon emissions by probably a little over 114 metric tons over 5 years and close to 700,000 over a 20-year period. The grant strategy breakdown talks. So here's a table just representing the projected greenhouse gas and carbon reductions for each of those 5 strategies and the proposed cost and how they totaled up to the 57.5 million. For the grant scoring, so these are the scoring criterias that the grant review team looked at: overall project summaries, the magnitude of those greenhouse emissions, environmental results, low income and disadvantaged communities, job quality, programmatic capacity, and budget and timeliness of expenditure of funds. Here it shows the max score that would be assigned for each of those criteria and what the city of Flagstaff's grant application was able to score. So I'm prepared to go to each one of those for the feedback for each of the criteria. But if recommended by the committee, also happy to kind of stop there. I believe this is in the packet. I don't know. Is this the first time we're seeing the table? So happy to pause. Can work through this presentation together.
No, go ahead, Chad.
All right. So a little deeper dive into the feedback. So overall, the project scored relatively, I would say relatively high with almost 34 points out of the 45. A few comments that came back were things like it was well laid out. There was a concept and a diagram of the multiple spokes of a wheel, again, around the centralized hub. So definitely got some attention. The description of the measures, there were excellent tasks and milestones. So some of the comments, risks could have been strengthened with a little more detail and descriptions of their impact on the greenhouse gas reduction estimates was the feedback from that one. So B, funding needs. So I apologize. So for the score, the 33.6, you can see each of the subcategories have the scoring also broke down for each of their subparts. So again, out of 20 points, the city was awarded about almost 17 points for the description of measures. For the funding need, again, about 80% award out of 10 points. So high marks on jump starting was excellent. Comments again, additional details on how tax incentives and other sources of funding could or have been evaluated to leverage with some of the feedback that we received. And for subpart C, out of 15 possible points, 9 were awarded on the transformational impact. So again, fairly high remarks. The emphasis on the sector with all the different approaches to reduce the biomass in a unique way, with technologies currently not used widely. So one of the comments and feedback we received was missing local populations' view on the project. And we're also asked for more detail on how these could be scalable or replicable through the other cities and states. So again, that was some feedback on the overall project.
Shannon, quick question on impact. Is it a fixed scale or is it relative to everybody else that submits? In other words, let's say we're going to have an impact of 100. Is that then thrown up against the scale, or we said 100 and everybody else said 5,000? How does that work? Or if you know?
No, I think for the evaluation criteria, that maximum amount of points awarded was set. For the people actually evaluating the presentation, I don't know how much validity they placed into the size of the communities as opposed to what is the grant. And actually maybe curious if they even know who the grant applicant was. I don't know how much discretion was given. They were looked, but I think that's a great question. I probably don't have a great answer for that. The second the second point talked about the magnitude, again, of those greenhouse gas reductions. So again, out of 60 points, we're awarded almost 41 points. A and B on the reductions on both the 5-year and 20-year, I'm not doing the math right, but from 2025 to 2030, and then the 25-year outlook. Talked about developing a distribution across the applications and to put our applications into the distribution that we were in the 75th percentile. So I think that was some feedback that out of all the applications they received, as far as I think the reduction over the 5 and 25-year, that we were in the 75th percentile. For subpart C, again, out of 15 points, awarded almost 11 for cost effectiveness. So this really comes down to that dollars per capita of carbon reduction, greenhouse reduction. And so with leveraging costs against the assigned, GPRC may be lowered and could have been a wash. So I think maybe that's, again, just looking at that mathematical, the level of investment based on how many pounds of emissions were reduced. So again, receive that feedback. And subpart D, documentation, out of 15 points, awarded 9. The comment was really looking for a more thorough explanation of the combination of greenhouse gas reductions across the spokes. The technical appendix that we included could have been, and maybe obviously was, could be confusing for some of the reviewers. So again, I think that's some good feedback for future considerations on a lens of this simplicity of understanding and reviewing that. The third category talked about environmental results. So out of 30 points, we're awarded 20. Again, this is considered as kind of solid marks on those points. Outputs and outcomes was 7 out of 10. And the comment generally was well regarded. Again, looking for more detail on the list of specific measures and how they'd be tracked over the course of the grant. Again, looking for more detail, more explanation through those. So part B, performance measures. Probably one of the lower receiving scores. We received almost 6 out of the 10 with comments about, again, flagging more detail would have strengthened the section, specifically around the non-greenhouse gas measures to be tracked. Looking to see how would we be able to collect data and performance measures from the actual plan and the method. And so part C, authorities and timelines, receiving over 7 of 10 points. So good timelines with roles, key milestones, strengthened with additional detail on the activities of each of the spokes. So I think you see a commonality on that environmental result, looking for a little more detail on like how is it measured and how would it compare from the plan to the execution. Regarding low income and disadvantaged communities, we scored very high in this marks. I think there may be a consideration that does Flagstaff qualify for low income and disadvantaged communities? When looking through the EPA, I believe there's a map and portions of Flagstaff do fall underneath that. So that is something that Flagstaff is able to leverage, and we've done that historically, and this was also applied in this. Again, very high marks on the community benefit. There's a lot of specific details around how that would work, looking into plans in the future and how to qualify and track benefits over the course of the grant and benefiting our disadvantaged communities, maybe in low income. So part B, again, over 8, almost 9 points out of 10 awarded for community engagement. Bilingual workshops and info are critical. Maybe a little more detail on the input from the community would be used on ongoing decisions and making implementation of the plans on how we involve the community. Honestly, probably doesn't surprise me that we scored high in community engagement. I think Flagstaff prides themselves in that and put a lot of extra work into making sure the community is engaged. Fifth category, job quality, 4 out of 5 points with high remarks. So we had several letters of support from some of our local partners. Appreciate their review, their work, and willingness to send us support, and also with coordinations with labor groups and places for that workforce development and training. 6 for the programmatic capacity, over 22 points were awarded out of 30. Past performance did weigh in a little bit low. Seems like maybe we were missing some information. Did we fully develop out our past performance? Providing more description on those agreements, contact names, this and that and another. So I think maybe a little more emphasis on that past performance, because I do feel Flagstaff has a very good past record of performance of receiving grant awards and executing those. Part B, reporting, we got 8 out of 10. Our grants group actually, again, does a great job of making sure we're on track in the reporting, so it does not surprise me we scored higher there. And staff expertise, really high, almost getting the whole 10 points. And again, I would give credit and kudos to our staffs and our staff in grants and contract administration, as well as the staff working the programs. 7 for the budget and timeliness expenditures of the fund, received 40 of the 45 points. Budget in detail could be strengthened, right, by breaking out some of the measures, which I think again was a common message throughout the review. Still awarding over 17 of the 20 points. Expenditures of funds, almost 14 of the 15 points. So felt like there was a good approach. The procedures and controls were all good and in place. And subpart C, reasonableness of costs, scored very high. I received very high remarks. Again, over 9 of the 10 points awarded for reasonable costs of what we were trying to implement. That concludes the slides that I had available. I appreciate you letting me kind of come and present through the feedback that we received on the grant, and happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Director Jones?
One from me. Shannon, is this remark on the final page? It says any way to shorten, hard to do with multiple measures. Was that a comment from the reviewers, or was that our own interpretation? Was that something written by our people?
That's on the last page of the packet. Okay, excuse me one second.
Yeah, last page of the this section that we were given.
Thank you, Commissioner Vane. Yeah, so the presentation was just a kind of high level look. I did try to be more thorough throughout the staff summary. Okay, no, I think that was, those are internal notes talking about like, what are some of the takeaways if we boiled down those comments, not getting granular, but any way to shorten it down. So one of our comments to me is that's hard to do when you have multiple aspects coming in. But, and then also, no, I think this was actually feedback from them about also using extra pages to deal with, could we use more appendices? Could we put more attachments? So not to burden the document, but, so I think that balance is kind of the takeaway where there was things we should have paid more attention to detail, maybe things we took for granted, that we believe is common knowledge, maybe to us, that needed more time to explain out. And then there were things that I think that we scored really high on, that we were able to communicate the concept and yeah, so.
I asked about that simply because I was trying to reconcile on one hand, the question, any way to shorten seems to imply it should have been shorter, but on the other hand, in some
More
areas,
detail.
they wanted more detail. So make it shorter, but have more detail.
So,
Hard to reconcile this
so
too.
talk less, but talk more about the stuff that's important to the reviewer, right?
Yeah, Don.
Shannon, is there going to be an opportunity, and does the city intend to reapply for the grant, taking into consideration these comments?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bills, there, right now, there's not an opportunity to go back for the EPA carbon pollution reduction. But there's multiple grants that we're applying for. And so being able to take this feedback and actually take the work that was done, take some of the feedback, how do we scale that back? But there are current grants that we're still seeking application for, specifically around the biochar, and taking this feedback to say, how will we reframe that? It's not through the EPA. I think it's actually more the community change grant is what sustainability is working on now. So, but not specifically for this grant. If that comes around next year, then that would be another consideration.
So there are other opportunities.
Yeah, definitely more grant opportunities that we're trying to salvage the work that was done and how we reframe it and keep making ourselves pitch for that outside funding.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just one quick one. So on the grants, I know it's various individuals participate depending on the topic of the grant, is what I understand. And so within the department, what would you say is who are the people that typically step in terms of their roles within the department, and then city from the finance team probably get involved pretty heavily, I would think. Is that where we really sort of see it? It's the department along with some of the city operation and finance people, or who typically coalesces to help try to put these in?
Mr. Chair, no, I think it's a great question. I think it depends on the grant. So this being an EPA carbon reduction or pollution reduction grant, I would say was driven by the Office of Sustainability. So then they coordinated efforts between Wildland Fire, their sustainability team, Water Services. But our Grants and Contract Administration is also very involved in that. And this particular grant, I also feel like sustainability brought in a third-party facilitator to help develop that. I mean, we met with that individual multiple times. Through Water Services, I think our lens was pretty narrow on the biosolids from wastewater. So I know there was a lot of other moving pieces from the other involved groups.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelman?
Shannon, so the emphasis from sustainability is working, using biochar to sequester carbon. Are there any other, and part of that grant was using biosolids to assist getting, dealing with the solids program and Wildcat. Do you see pursuing grants kind of focusing on those two things in the future?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Nauman, absolutely do. Again, so with the community change grant that's currently being worked on, I think streamlines it down a little bit. So Water Services is still at the table looking at our biosolids. We definitely see it as a viable methodology. We definitely know that the biomass and feedstock coming from the forest surrounds, one is a much larger magnitude. But also brings different challenges and opportunities. But so I think under the current grant that they're working, the lens of I think it was 5-spoke hub, I think is now streamlined down more into 2, which is that forestry biomass and biosolids from wastewater treatment.
Do you think you may partner with the Forest Service in addition, perhaps?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I definitely know with our partners in Wildland Fire that they work very closely with them through our reach as far as making sure those programs happen. Water Services definitely stays engaged. But I definitely know that is a consideration. Had an opportunity to meet with some of the subgroups locally in the community where you see the players within that forest management and seeing that camaraderie and again, trying to get that feedback and support of what that would look like.
Last question. I understand there's a grant that's currently being considered right now. Is that true?
Yes, so currently they're developing the application. I believe sometime in November would be the grant outline. The team has been very successful. I'm sure they're going to meet the deadline, but they're continuing to meet on that, putting the pieces together, again, trying to pull information from this one, feedback, what could be done different, how do we build out the details we need? I think honestly, kind of streamline and more simplicity. How do you shorten that down? And definitely with the wood mass is a great gain. I think Water Services is probably a few steps ahead with some of our solids handling, where that makes sense. And I think that allows us a good seat at the table. And I think we try to serve as a good partner within that group with sustainability on how we can make that happen. We benefit, they benefit, the community can benefit.
Super. Thank you.
Sir.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Okay, item 5B, 2024 report to the Water Commission for the calendar year 2023. By Sarah, I'm going to ask if you could pronounce your last name because I don't want to say it incorrectly.
Sure thing. Good afternoon, Water Commission. My name is Sarah Jablon, Community Engagement Specialist, Water Services. So today I'm going to present to you the 2024 report to the Water Commission for calendar year 2023. And here on the front page, we have our mission statement, professionally and cost-effectively providing water, wastewater, and stormwater services that meet the present and future environmental, health, and safety needs of the community and our coworkers. Committed to a goal of 100% customer satisfaction achieved through dedication to exceed customer expectations by continuously improving our operations. So going through this presentation, I'm going to go over the highlights of the report. You'll see that I have the page numbers at the very top so you can follow along in your on your hard copy. And we've got about 12 slides to get through. So starting with acknowledgements, we like to acknowledge everyone who has a hand in helping to build this report. So the 2024 Water Commission, the Commission liaisons, and Water Services staff all play a part. And this year we would like to extend further thanks to Katie Vanyo and Rachel So of Hazen and Sawyer. So beginning with notable events and awards on page 7. The WIFA Board of Directors approved 2 grants through the WCGF for water resource systems modeling and efficiency projects, including $750,000 from WIFA and a $250,000 match from the city to accelerate the replacement of water meters with ultrasonic meters. $136,000 from WIFA with a $45,000 match from the city to improve tracking non-revenue water. An additional notable event is the Schultz Creek Sediment and Flood Mitigation Detention Basin Project was named Project of the Year for emergency projects under $5 million by the APWA. Krista Snow received a wonderful Outstanding Worker Award from Gary Miller for her work on the Arizona Department of Water Resources Dam Report. And the city awarded Oak Awards to Aaron Young, Brian Hunsinger, and Mac McNamara for leadership, teamwork, and accountability. Moving on to water production, pages 8 through 11. So 2023 was the year that we had that record snowfall, and so Upper Lake Mary experienced a 100% capacity and overflow starting in March and continuing through May. We produced about 7,969 acre-feet of potable water that year and 1,871 acre-feet of reclaimed water. And so 81% of that, all of our water produced was potable, 19% was reclaimed. And here you can see in figure 1 our water production by source. And this is a chart that we update every year, starting from 1953 to the present. And you can see that in 2023, Upper Lake Mary production did increase significantly due to those water levels. Moving on to water production operations. We repaired the interbasin pipeline and began repairs of both Waterline and Schultz Pass roads. Water Services rehabilitated the backwash tower at Lake Mary Water Reclamation Plant, repaired and upgraded electrical components, cleaned Paradise Tank and the raw water pump station Clearwell, replaced and upgraded the MIOX on-site sodium hypochlorite generator at Fox Glen and Sinagua Well House, and upgraded the chlorine analyzer at Rio Well and replaced and upgraded the booster pump at Tuttle Well. And so there you can also see we've included figure 2, 2023 water production in millions of gallons per week. And you can see it always goes up in the summer. Okay, moving on to wastewater and reclaimed water, pages 11 through 15. Wildcat Hill Water Reclamation Plant experienced influent flows over 12 million gallons per day from March through April due to infiltration and inflow of the spring runoff. And Rio and Wildcat treated more than 2 billion gallons of effluent and delivered over 600 million gallons of reclaimed water that year. And then you can see our chart for figure 3, reclaimed water use by customer class. Moving on to wastewater operations on page 17, we have operations at Wildcat Hill Wastewater Reclamation Plant and the Rio de Flag Wastewater Reclamation Plant. At Wildcat Hill, we designed new cogeneration project to utilize digester gas, worked with Noresco on an energy efficient lighting project and weatherization of buildings project, designed a new digester, designed a new primary effluent pump station, completed an electrical an HVAC project in the electrical building and completed the installation of a new odor control system. At Rio, we installed anoxic zone mixers, designed new solids handling projects to reduce the loading on Wildcat Hill. That was a major consideration that year, was reducing the impact to Wildcat Hill and finding ways for Rio to take in more flow. We installed new bar screens at Influent Pump Station. Bond-funded projects included new emergency generators and improving aeration blowers, and we installed a new RAS pump and check valve on the reclaim line. Okay, moving on to water resources, pages 20 through 29. So every year we refer back to the designation of adequate water supply, which make sure that we have enough water for the next 100 years looking out. And so in 2023, our demand was 9,840 acre feet per year, and this fell about 4,000 acre feet below the designation volume that would be required for modification. The feasibility study for Red Gap Ranch entered phase 2. And we launched a rate study for water, wastewater, and reclaim water services. So here we have our water use trends chart. This goes from 1980 to 2023. As you can see, our water use per the GPCD continues to decrease every year, which is cool because our population continues to increase. Moving on to stormwater, pages 29 through 35. Capital improvement projects for stormwater included the Army Corps of Engineers Rio de Flag Flood Control Design Review, the Spruce Wash and Schultz Creek suite of projects, and drainage spot improvements. The stormwater section completed 835 site inspections and 46 drainage investigations. They also completed maintenance of detention basins, dredged the Rio de Flag, and removed vegetation, invasive trees, and debris. And the stream gauges remain viewable online. You can go online and view that data in real time at any time. And so the figures we have here in the top right, that is the Schultz Creek detention basins after completion. And then we also have a before and after image of how dredging clears up the Rio. Okay, now we're going to go into regulatory compliance and SCADA information systems on pages 36 through 40. So in 2023, we onboarded many new employees in the regulatory compliance section, including a regulatory compliance manager, an industrial pretreatment program manager, an industrial pretreatment program inspector, and a wastewater lab technician. We completed water piping for the lead and copper rule revision service line inventory mandate. 2 industries successfully renewed their discharge permits, and 88Q conducted a scheduled AZPDES facility inspection and unannounced APP facility inspection at Wildcat Hill with minor findings. And SCADA Information Systems entered its 4th year as a section, and among their activities include developing, maintaining, expanding, and securing remote access to water processes, including booster stations and wells, the SCADA network, operational technology servers and client systems, and the call-out system. Now we're going to look at conservation and outreach on pages 43 through 46. In 2023, the conservation team received an Excellence Award from the EPA WaterSense program. In-person outreach reached 5,000 stakeholders in over 52 public events. They conducted 6 rainwater harvesting workshops with 96 participants, 23 businesses and nonprofits received water efficiency consultations and fixtures, and 200 interactions with customers regarding the water conservation ordinance. And so you can see that calendar there is in regard to the ordinance on when you are or are not allowed to water your lawn. And the picture is Tamara Lawless and Emily Melhorn receiving the WaterSense Partner of the Year Award for 2023. And the last slide, customer service on page 46. In 2023, customer service fulfilled 2,200 new account activations, 2,400 billing edits, and 350 landlord service transfers. They fielded over 20,000 inbound calls. They installed new meter reading software with the ability to review daily readings on customers' accounts. And delinquent accounts collections resulted in nearly $2.5 million in collections, with less than 175 physical disconnections for non-payment. And they also signed a contract with a new payment provider. And since I had space, I included our organization chart, because we are a very big division. And that's it on the highlights. Any questions?
Any questions from the team? Don?
On, this is related to delivered reclaimed water by customer class. And I'm wondering if the city keeps track over time of how reclaimed water use by customer class is changing. Are some of the classes using more or less water? Is the overall delivered reclaimed water for all classes increasing?
Commissioner Reels, I'll take a shot at that one. So I would say that data is available. So it's not reflected in the report, but we do have year over year. This is a typical, if you go back to all the annual reports, this is a typical graphic that we've added. I think the one thing I would keep in mind, just in consideration of processing that data is, so reclaim is also very weather dependent. And so looking at the, if you automatically saw a decrease in reclaim use, I would immediately go to look to see what was the weather projections that year. Was it a wetter year or summer? Because the majority of that is, I would say, is turf irrigation and is dependent upon on the weather. But I'm happy to try to work through, I can send an email out. I can pull those data over the last few years when that's been in there to look at that trend. That data is available.
One of the reasons I asked the question is I think I recall when we were evaluating rate increases, one of the issues that came up had to do with how reclaimed water use might be changing, or whether or not the overall reclaimed water use at some point in time might not be available because it is being fully used, in regards to its relationship in the overall availability of water for the city of Flagstaff.
Okay, I appreciate that as a comment. I don't think there was a direct question there. I think I agree with you.
Yeah, it's more along the lines of a comment, and I think it would be useful information to add to this report if it can be done without a lot of additional research and verbiage.
Yeah, no, Commissioner, I think I can pull that together, just for a quick snapshot and can get that emailed out. I think, that can probably be built out further in the upcoming conversations on the reclaim discussion. But I definitely think I can pull that information relatively easy at a high level, just to create a graphic and get that sent out to the commission. Happy to do that.
Thank you. The other question I had relates to 2023 water production. Upper Lake Mary was full. It did spill, and yet I would have expected a larger increase in use of surface water from the lake than the well fields, and I'm wondering if there is an explanation behind that, some deferred maintenance that may have made it made the city unable to be able to use more water out of that surface water resource.
All right, I appreciate that. I think everybody knows probably as well as I do that we definitely have large plans for Lake Mary Water Treatment Plant as we move into the sedimentation rehab. I don't believe that that's a constraint. I think it's more dynamic than that. When the time of the water was available, right, and coming into the reservoir was not when we're in the peak season. So I think as you look at the production going in, what is the system demand at the time and how that comes through. Also keeping in mind that it's very important for a water utility, again, being multifaceted to have multiple feeds into the system, not just to have redundancy, but when you look at meeting systems pressures, turnover in your reservoirs, I don't know that we'd ever be in a place that I could just turn everything else off and just run Lake Mary Water Treatment Plant. I don't think hydraulically the system would work necessarily that way. Also feel like during that time, as we begin to ramp into the peak season with the repair of the interbasin pipeline, was also a major feat. We had a lot of people put in a lot of time and effort to restore that pipeline. And during this, going into that summer, as soon as that pipeline was restored, we also moved into bringing that into the surface water from the interbasin. We wanted to get that plant back up and running, make sure that that system worked. So it also added, what if that was 1 million gallons a day into the system to meet demand. So again, it's pretty dynamic. I understand what you're saying. And I do agree with you. I do feel like staff takes that into consideration, that we definitely want to leverage that surface water when it's available and to its maximum potential. And, but yeah, so I think that's a great comment and point. I appreciate that feedback.
Well, thank you for the additional context.
Of course.
Yeah, Commissioner Nauman.
Yeah, I might have missed something in your answer. That was just a great answer. I appreciate that. With regard to the water coming from Upper Lake Mary, what's this? We had some pipeline projects in the budget, and I can't remember what year they were coming in to improve those lines, bringing water to the treatment plant. What's the status of those projects, and is that a limitation?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Alman, not necessarily a limitation on the production per se. I wouldn't quote me to the facts and figures. I think over time, I think we've been tracking 12 to 14 significant breaks within that raw water conveyance system from Lake Mary. Also intertwines with potentially with the Lake Mary well field, so two potential sources. It is earmarked in our CIP to look at that raw water pipeline. This year, the budget is programming for that to be in the design phase, and I know staff is working on getting out the procurement. We've had a couple of, I know there's been multiple discussions and lunch and learns around technology, material considerations that staff can make an informed decision that we've been doing this year. And, but yeah, with Mac and his team, Mr. McNamara, the engineering section director, yeah, I was working to procurement, so we're expecting to try to bring that forth as a contract to get a design firm on board to look at what that rehabilitation looks like. Could be multiple phases on that project and could be multiple technologies applied in that project. And so I think that's an interesting dynamic, but it is a great asset that the city has, and it is earmarked for consideration for reinvestment into that asset.
The other question I had is about the graph on page 24 relating to predicting when we're going to need new water sources and so forth. And I was just comparing last year's report to this year's report. And last year it said we would need additional water in 2055, and this year it's 2052. So we're looking at a need 3 years earlier, and I'm just wondering, what's the trend in that year prediction? I haven't gone back and looked at the reports, and I don't really remember. And what factors may be causing the shift?
Chairman and Chairman Nauman, sorry, I tuned out. This was the first time I tuned out since I arrived. Can you, I was working on something for the commission, but can you repeat the question?
You know, it's the graph on page 24 of the report, where you have the various water sources, and then you're trying to extend out to beyond 2077 to predict where the water needs and additional sources will be needed. And in the current report of 2024, it says 2052. And then the one for last year, it says 2055. So we just lost 3 years. And I'm just wondering, you know, what's the trend in that? Is there a trend where we see that the time shortening, or and what may be causing that?
Great question, Councilmember Nauman. Every year, we kind of update these scenarios, and we might tweak the growth rate, for example, to match some new projected growth rate. So this past one, I believe may have matched the growth rate to what was published by the local economic collaborative, Econa. That might be why we changed the growth rate, or we'll update our 5-year gallons per capita. So the gallon per capita rate, if that changes a little bit, then we'll go plus or minus a couple years. So that's why the changes, and that's why we're always updating sort of our scenario planning. Because you know, the scenarios ultimately result in kind of a bullseye of options. Not a bullseye, more of a grouping of options, with like the bullseye where we focus on making sure that we meet demands within the bullseye. So
I just, because that's such a key number to this commission, knowing what we're looking at in terms of needing new water sources and how do we plan for that. And I shouldn't take, I mean, I could probably pull out old reports and start looking at that number and just comparing what the trend is. But I think it's probably just dependent upon God knows what, you know, population trends may change from year to year, and you can't really predict that necessarily, so.
exactly, that's why we run a range of scenarios, and we end up with, you know, a grouping of opportunities. What am I trying to say? We end up with a grouping of futures. And then we're looking for those opportunities that meet the future. You know, so it might be a portfolio that addresses most of those, and we kind of hone in on the bullseye of what opportunities meet most of those futures, because we won't know the population growth rate, we won't know the water usage rate in that specific year in the future. So we have a number of scenarios that also include on the water supply side. If we have an extended drought, 10-year drought, and we actually, Upper Lake Mary isn't usable like it was in 2003, if that is a prolonged future, then we plan to not have that water supply, and we plan for redundancy. We plan for resiliency against wildfire that could take out like one of our transmission mains, maybe from the Woody Mountain well field. It takes out infrastructure within the Woody Mountain well field. That might take 5 years to get back up and fully running. So actually in November, we're proposing the commission here, that presentation on resiliency and redundancy planning, the future, the timing of future water supplies. That's the piece that we left out when Jacobs presented to you in July. If you remember early in Jacob's presentation, we talked about, well, when do we need a future water supply? And the commission, we wanted to talk in more detail about the timing. We're bringing that detail back to you in November if it makes it on the agenda. So.
Thanks, Aaron.
Question. So Chairman or Director Jones, quick question on power. I know it's increase. Is it would you relate it more to just a rate change from APS, or do we have to put some more power hungry equipment online, both from production or sewage?
Mr. Chair, no, I think any changes you've seen, we haven't had additional power demand, any more significant in the system. So I would say that's related more to escalation of costs over time.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I mean, conservation continuing to be effective is fantastic. And one of the reasons why that water chart looks so good in terms of potential sources. So congratulations to the team and the awards, and more importantly, the actual effect in the community. It's pretty amazing. So,
Yeah, it's it's a great report, great work. I know it takes a long time to get this put together, so appreciate that.
Don.
This is kind of a picky little question, but in terms of the inner city wells, how many are actually drilled as part of that inner city well system right now? I should say drilled and developed.
Commissioner Bills, with the inner city, I think we have 9. And we do have a listing of our wells in here. We have McAllister, Tut Hill 2, Sonawa, Fox Glen, Continental, Shop, Interchange. That's 8. There's, oh, Rio, I think it's 9.
I was asking the question because I was noticing on that figure 1 that the local wells now make up a significant, if not the largest portion of water supply.
Yeah, that's a great observation. I know our water production team is working to relax the Lake Mary well field a bit to see if the aquifer rebounds, and realizing that our local well field is the most resilient to wildfire. But as Director Jones pointed out, there are operational reasons as well to run certain wells as we use those entry points to chlorinate the system as well.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Malcolm?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah, thank you. It's a great report. It's amazing the detail, but also, again, the efficiency just is fantastic in terms of conservation. That's a key for the city for so long. Oh, yeah, it's incredible. Okay,
I second that comment. I mean, it's a report that I've used myself over the years to add context to more regional water issues. So it's really helpful information.
Okay, moving to item 6, old business, which there is none. So we'll move to item 7, informational items 2 from chair, commission members, or staff. So anybody have any informational? I think Aaron might have informational.
Chairman Riggleman, thank you. So we wanted to provide an update on the reclaimed water rate committee that was voted on in our last meeting. We have assembled a committee, although we're, after meeting with council members Sweet and Chairman Riegelman and our director, we feel the better approach is more of a work group style and not such a formal committee. We want to make sure that there's representation across the users, and it was kind of difficult to do that with just a few committee members. So we'll be providing an invitation for a work group. And council member, I'm sorry, I don't know where my brain is, still in Scottsdale, I just got back. Commissioner Bills and Commissioner Payne, you both asked to be on it, so you'll be getting this email. A woman with the Aspen Valley Country Golf Course will be on it. Pros representation, our city parks group, FUSD, and then we'll inform the reclaimed water users that this discussion will be happening. We're aiming for a 90-minute time frame, and we'll have some material ahead of time to review. I think we'd like to schedule this as soon as possible so that we can address any additional work that would come of the work group. How is that for a summary?
I think it sounds good. No, so there's what a package that'll come out will be sort of, here's some important trends, here's some facts and figures, because we've also got a little bit wider group involved in this. So what does reclaimed water look like in the past few years? What are some of the considerations? What are potential positions on things? So there's something to debate on instead of trying to create from scratch with 15 cooks. So I think it'll be a little bit more efficient use of time, and everybody can bring their comments, and then we can move from there. And we will have this first meeting, and we may only need one meeting, we may need 10. I'm not sure. We'll see where everybody's input is, but we'll be able to sort of get moving and have feedback for city council, and I think some thoughtful approaches on how to tackle this. So it looks good. Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's appropriate, but I see there's a representative from Snowball. Yes. Are you going to be representing Snowball in this committee? I don't know. I didn't hear. I'm just looking at the major users of reclaimed water, and Snowball is definitely one. So Rob Lynn should definitely have a shot at it if he wants it.
Yeah, I will be, I'm sorry that you haven't received anything, but as the work group will inform the reclaimed water users of the work group of the day and time, and then hope to have your attendance. So, yeah.
And NAU as well. I don't know if you mentioned that one, but yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did reach out to NEU.
Go ahead. Raise your hand.
Kurt, at the previous meeting, you had asked commission members to send in a list of what they thought were, principles that should guide reclaimed water use or reclaimed water pricing potentially. I know I did not act on that, so I'm remiss on that. Are you still looking for that kind of input in advance of this meeting? Or should we be restating that assignment or request, or are you going a different path?
Yeah, to your point, it was kind of the sound of one hand clapping. So what I would say is just keep your powder dry. When we get the document, we can take a look, and then we can kind of debate around that. So, I mean, have them in your head for sure, because then we could talk about it at the working group. So, yeah, and that'll probably be, I think different people have some different approaches, and that's what we're looking for, is bring your approaches, because we will compare it to this, and then we can see where we need to push things around.
Perhaps I didn't listen closely enough, but in this document, are you actually planning to recommend a pricing approach, or just to define several approaches, or?
Yes,
Yeah,
there'll be an approach. It's like, let's try this, and then everybody can debate around it. Yeah. So I think just because, again, having lived this in previous lives, trying to get 13 people or 15 to coalesce around a single approach is tough. But if you come with an approach, then everybody can tug and pull and make comments, and we can kind of beat it into something useful. So, yeah. Sir.
So I probably don't have time to be on this committee or work group or whatever you want to call it. But I do have some thoughts, so I could write something up and maybe come to one event or one work group meeting, or just give it to Rob and he can bring it?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, everybody's got access to this, so you can take a look at it, and if you've got thoughts, you can send it to all thrh of us, or just Commissioner Bain, wherever you want to send it. That's it. It is free to go. That's right, paper airplane, but, yeah, so I think it'll be, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a great discussion. Any other informational items? Commissioner?
I want to congratulate the Water Department. From what I understand, 180 is now back to its original condition. And that project is completely done, I guess. Is that true?
That's correct. We're on point.
Yeah. I went to the flood insurance, one of your meetings for the public, just to see what's happening. And a lady found out I was on the Water Commission and she twisted my ear for about 5 minutes. And she has been watching the Rio de Flag channel. And she's worried that there's a lot of stuff growing in it right now again. It seems to grow fast. And her point was with the completion of the Schultz Creek remediation project, that water is going to get into the Rio quickly. And it will that, she was worried about, can the channel handle the water volume in the event of a large flood event or not? So she's worried about it being cleared on a regular basis so that the flow isn't impeded too much. So I'm just relaying that to you guys.
Any other informational items? Commissioner Beck?
Yeah, thank you. A question, at the previous meeting, we received a presentation on the lead and copper service line inventory and so forth. And looking back at the minutes, initial inventory is due October 16th. Did we in fact meet that? Did that happen?
Chairman, Commissioner, we did meet that deadline. Yes.
I guess, and at the discussion, during the discussion, we had mentioned that some people will be receiving, is it a COF, the unknown, there will be a certain number of unknowns, and those need to be sent out to the public. I'm wondering if, has that happened yet, or have we gotten any reaction? We were worried about, public reaction to the unknowns that would be out there, and whether it, at worst case, would cause a panic, people saying, if they received a note from water service saying, we don't know what your service pipes are.
Okay, so we did develop a communication plan for that. And so we are intending still to send out notices in November, and we are intending to have a news release alerting the community that those notices will be coming. And so currently, right now, the team is developing additional language within those notices. A lot of the language provided by the EPA we cannot remove. It has to be included, and so, but we can add whatever we want. So we're working on that right now. And we did send an email to council with that communication plan information. We can send that to you as well.
Yeah, I know, I would enjoy seeing it. Yeah, I think collectively, we expressed a concern that that might be a very touchy topic with some potential to blow up a little bit. And so, yeah, I'm delighted to hear the care you're putting into that.
Yeah, the word lead is scary, but yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Erin.
I do have one more comment to add. Thank you, Chairman. On the October 22nd City Council agenda is Jacob's presentation on Red Gap Ranch, a shortened version of what was presented to you all in July. That would conclude the report, phase 2 report, at which time it would be released to the public. I just thought that was an important update for you all.
Thank you. Going once, twice, three. All right, well, thank you. That will close that out and we'll move to section 8, which is adjournment. And we will adjourn at 5:10 PM. So thank you, everybody. And thanks again for a fantastic annual report. And- Oh, yeah, it's all there. It's all there. So thank you, everybody.